On today's show, is this a prove-it year for LaMelo Ball and his future with the Hornets? And what does new head coach Charles Lee bring to Charlotte? It's all coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. Just head on over to FanDuel.com. You can take a look at so many different wagers, like the different weekly specials that they have, who's going to make the playoffs, win totals. My favorite, just go take a look at who's going to win the Super Bowl. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs favorites to win at plus 500. Right behind them, you have the San Francisco 49ers at plus 650. And then in third place, the Buffalo Bills at plus 950 to win the Super Bowl this season. So all those odds and so much more, all available to you right at your fingertips. Just head on over. That's FanDuel.com. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Hornets, Doug Branson. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Hornets. Now, Doug, this upcoming season, I feel like this is maybe, I don't know if I want to say a pivotal season for LaMelo Ball, maybe a prove-it year, maybe not, but let's just start with his health first and foremost, right? He has only played 58 games in the last 2 seasons due to a combination of different injuries across the way. Where is he at health-wise right now going into this year?
Everything that we know is that he is 100% healthy, ready to go. And really, I think more so than what his health status is now, the question is, what is he going to do to maintain that health status this season and beyond? Because remember, LaMelo Ball just signed a max contract for the Charlotte Hornets. So a lot is on the line, not only for LaMelo to sort of regain his all-star status amongst the NBA elite guards, but also there's a lot at stake for this team that if he cannot prove to be healthy, we'll have to find a way to pivot away from that decision into possibly a Brandon Miller-led team. But the question is, what is he going to do to maintain his health? And we've gotten some indications that he's going to at least experiment with wearing ankle braces, something that he's tried a little bit in the past, but it didn't really stick. It was uncomfortable for him. And it seems like after this latest round of ankle injuries that ended his season after only 22 games played, that he is finally going to try those ankle braces, and hopefully that will give him some extra strength. And hopefully they've done some stuff around training as well to strengthen just that whole lower body for him so that he can, put up with the grind of an 82-game season.
Yeah, it gets problematic when it's those recurring injuries that happen over and over and over, and you just start. I mean, look, the ankle braces worked for Steph Curry. Maybe they'll work for LaMelo. Obviously, it's a weird sensation, right? When you're not used to having that foreign object wrapped around your ankle, you don't have the comfortability. You're not moving as laterally quick, or you don't have the burst as what you're comfortable with. So we'll see what happens there. Now, aside from the health, that's obviously a big part of this for LaMelo. Aside from the health, what does he need to do this season to kind of prove that he can still be the Hornets' centerpiece moving forward?
Yeah, I think that he has to continue some of the strides that he did make in that 22-game sample size last season. He was much better at driving the basketball, had much better intention going to the rim, not pulling up for as many of those sort of running layups and going right to the rim and trying to draw more fouls, which he did more of, because that is going to be what sort of accelerates his scoring from dynamic to like consistent, scoring impact, possible 40-game point threat. He's just not that right now. He does a lot of things on the floor that help the Charlotte Hornets, but he hasn't been a huge scoring threat, an elite scoring threat. And so just continuing those strides, I think, are going to help. And then I think he's got to take some of the frustration fouls, some of the wild passes, some of the gambles that he makes on the defensive end. I think Zach Lowe on his latest podcast called them sort of carnival-esque aspects of his game. Like he's got to, and so, we said on the podcast, like he's got to go from carnival act to ringleader. He needs to be the guy that comes in and tames the lions every once in a while. He can't just be the bearded lady, like the sideshow act. And so I think that's an evolution that a lot of sort of dynamic point guards that can do it all. I think that's an evolution that a lot of guys like that make. Can he take more of the leadership role on the floor? Not necessarily like off the floor guy who's talking a lot in the locker room kind of leader, but can he be a leader on the floor in terms of making the right plays at the right time and coming up in crunch time?
It's so funny hearing that terminology. First off, I love that analogy, the circus ringleader analogy, because you hear about it with players like Steph or going a little bit further back, guys like Manu, right, who had a little bit of like some eccentricities to their game, and coaches have talked about, obviously you want to try to rein them in a little bit, but you also have to let them be who they are, right? That's right. What makes them such unique players in the first place. So it'll be interesting to see and that's a kind of a tall task for new head coach Charles Lee coming in here, right? I guess kind of what are some of the expectations for his first season taking over for Steve Clifford?
I think the expectations are that he is a defensive-minded coach and that he is going to demand excellence on that end of the floor. And the Hornets, even when they've been at their healthiest, have not been excellent on that end of the floor. And you go back even to the Borrego era, where they went to the play-in game twice and just absolutely got shellacked in both of those games because they were high-octane offense, and then they got into the postseason when everything seizes up and they couldn't maintain any kind of defensive identity, and they got run by the Pacers and then the Atlanta Hawks. And so, I think that's what Lee is expected to do and already has done to some extent, because he was the head coach for a portion of their summer league, and he had a training camp, and he was demanding from guys like Nick Smith Jr. and Brandon Miller that they commit fully on that defensive end of the floor. And then even more than that, if you zoom out a little bit, he has talked about changing the Hornets' DNA, establishing an identity, establishing a culture that takes all of the little things into account. And really, I think the expectation should be for him, somebody that has championship pedigree with two different franchises, to use that cachet and come in to tell these young guys, hey, listen, I've been to the mountaintop. I know what it takes from a player perspective. And if you follow me on this, I can take you there. And really, that's all he can do. And then it's up to the guys in the locker room at that point to say, okay, I'm tired of losing. Yes, injuries have been a factor, but I'm tired of being part of a losing organization. Let's change the DNA.
Does it feel like it's a great message when a coach comes in? Sometimes you need that facelift, that new identity, all that. Does it feel, but unfortunately, the coaches aren't the ones on the court actually going through everything with these guys. They're not going to war with them out there playing with these guys. Does it feel like the Hornets have the right mix of veteran voices in the locker room to help carry across that message from Coach Lee?
I think it's a great question. I'm not sure the answer is yes yet, although just in like a small move like bringing in Taj Gibson, I think is something that this organization has not done in the past few years. And it's been maddening, honestly, because this, in the sort of Michael Jordan, Mitch Kupchak led part of this franchise, they would constantly talk about we've got what we need in the locker room. We've got, we've got the leadership, and then every year they would come up short. And so it was frustrating to watch that happen over and over again. And I think you've seen the new ownership group, Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall, and the new GM, Jeff Peterson, be really committed to replicating what has been successful across the league, bringing in those veteran voices, okay? But I don't think they're there yet. And I think the reason they're not there yet and they haven't committed like big dollars or big trade assets to bring in like a Mikal Bridges or somebody else maybe with some more veteran playoff experience is because of the injuries the past few seasons. I'm not sure that they know what they have. And so I think this year is still going to be a weird prove-it year for LaMelo Ball, for Miles Bridges, for Brandon Miller, just to see what they have, who needs to stay and who needs to move once they do want to win. And I think they also want flexibility, come mid-season. If they're hanging around that sort of play-in zone, they've got a first-round pick that's lottery protected. And they probably don't want to lose at least access to using that pick either by drafting someone or trading it, and packaging it in a deal. And so, they could still be sort of on the, kind of precipice of like, do we win or do we not? So there's some flexibility there. So that I think all of that goes into like why they haven't gone all the way in. But I think they're committed to doing that when the timing is right.
Looking up and down this Hornets roster, I do think they're kind of like a sneaky team to be in the play-in discussion in the Eastern Conference. Look, you mentioned his name there a moment ago, Brandon Miller. Look, he had what felt like a pretty successful rookie season, 17 points, 4 rebounds on shooting splits of 50, 37, 83. It just overshadowed by that, crazy tall fellow down in San Antonio. How does he take a significant step forward here in year 2?
I think offensively, it's going to be all about taking some of those mid-range looks that he's honestly very good at. Like he can get past a defender pretty quickly off the pass, and then pull up for a mid-range shot. He's got length, and so he can get that shot up quick over the defense and knock it down. And he was successful with that last season. But I think the step for him offensively, and Coach Lee has talked about this already, is taking some of those mid-range looks and converting them into pick and roll 3-point looks, or even off the catch 3-point looks, just getting him to shoot more threes. I mean, it's honestly as simple as that for him offensively. And then defensively, I think with the injuries last season, he was put into some situations that probably weren't ideal for a rookie trying to find his way in the NBA. So like, you would see him one night be up against Jalen Brunson for way too many possessions. Like he just had no business guarding Jalen Brunson that much, and he got smoked. And so like, I think defensively, he's just going to benefit if guys stay healthy. If you've got Josh Green now with the Hornets, probably going to be LaMelo Ball starting back court mate, and he can take those responsibilities and allow Brandon Miller to kind of find his way defensively. And then the final thing is just bulking up. He's got to get stronger once that piece comes in, because I think he's got the full complement of tools and IQ off the charts. Like it's all there. Once the body catches up a little bit, I think he's got the potential to be, one of the 20 best players in the NBA in like a season or two.
Can LaMelo Ball get healthy and get back to his all-star form? And what is Charles Lee going to bring to the Hornets? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Hornets. Doug, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
All right. Thanks, Jackson.